your screen on your Zoom, in which you can click and you can put in your question, and we'll monitor that to see if we we'll answer your questions. Or you can raise your hand under the reactions, and we can ask you your question. So first of all, before we get going, I would ask Paul McMunn, our Director of Public Works, to do the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Vanessa. So on November 30th, 2021, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. The land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come.
Thank you very much. So now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Kevin Hawley from Greer Galloway Group. Kevin?
Hello, good evening. So I work for Greer Galloway Engineering. I'll be the lead engineer on this project. So to give a little background, the town went out for an RFP for the design of George Street rehabilitation. The project itself encompasses George Street from Stratcona to Gladstone. This project is being driven by direction from the MOE, basically. What we have in this section of George Street is a combined sewer. And it's part of the town's long-term plan to alleviate some concerns and issues they're having at the sewage plant by uncombining the sewer and storm. And in doing this, what happens basically is when you have a storm event, right now what's happening is that sanitary is being surged with stormwater. That stormwater is going to the plant is being run over capacity from time to time. So the MOE in the province is directing that these combined sewers be separated. In separating the storm and the sanitary, we ensure that any sanitary water goes to the sanitary plant. Any storm water is going to go to the new treatment system that was installed previously at the outlet of George Street, which is the storm scepter. This is an environmental concern. What it boils down to is it's better for the environment to separate these two. It helps eliminate sewage bypasses at the plant. Stormwater doesn't require the same treatment as sanitary does, and it leads itself to stormwater comes in surges as storm events occur on the streets. This water enters the system, and now we'll have an opportunity not to go to the sewage plant, but go to a separate system, to the storm treatment system. And if we do get a larger system come through a storm system, it can bypass, and it doesn't have the same effect on the environment as if that water mixed with sewage water and bypassed and got into the Rideau. So this is going to be a net benefit to the environment. The ultimate receiver is the Rideau, the river, and the town itself, in saving money and not treating as much sanitary water at the sanitary plant. So in doing this, we have to rip up the street. Most of the work is going to be stuff you can't see. It's going to be uncombining the existing storm and sanitary pipe underground, and installing that new system. But in doing this, we're going to have to remove the asphalt and the sidewalk on either side of the existing street. Just because when we do construction, there's no way to save that sidewalk, that existing infrastructure. And at this point in the design, we're still fairly early. We're at 30%, I would say, and we need to engage the town and the local community with different options to replace what's there. So that's what kind of this meeting is about. More, it's about the options that we're going to look over for the cross sections, not so much the individual grading of people's driveways or what's going to happen at your individual house unit. We will have additional meetings once we kind of get direction on these cross sections. We will have another another meeting where individual homeowners can come up with, that's where we want to talk about, do you have sub pumps, how they're going to be connected, what's going to happen to your driveway, maybe your flower beds. That's going to occur at a future date. Right now, we're just trying to decide on a typical cross section for the street, and that'll drive the remainder of the design. Some key points also to the design: when we remove this existing sidewalk, it currently does not meet the Accessibility Act of Ontario. It is not wide enough in its current state, so it will need to be widened. We don't really have a choice in that matter. The way the legislation works is anytime you put something back in, it has to meet the AWA requirements, which means it has to be accessible for everyone. So your sidewalk is going to get wider. Your road, generally, the platform will remain the same. Not to say that the sidewalk might get a little wider and might encroach on your existing yards, but we're not talking substantial change. This will be determined once we get a cross section, an idea what cross section we're going to go for. And nothing's set in stone. We're just looking for input right now at this point to discuss the two options for the cross sections. Now, the main difference between the two is option one is more typical of what's there now. It's two sidewalks on either side, 4-meter lanes, curb. It's pretty typical what's there. I'm just gonna have some trouble maybe getting this to zoom down. Where option two is removal of one of the.
Kevin, are you able? Sorry, Kevin, are you able to? Kevin, are you able to share the cross sections? I still see the Google image of the streets, unless it's just me. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, it might be just you, Paul, because I've had this up for a little bit.
No,
so this is the second option with the bike
Google
lane.
image. Sorry, we still have
it was up and then it was gone again. So are you using dual screens?
No, I only have one computer. I'll close the sketch. Does that work? Screen sharing is stopped. Okay, share screen. Let me just sorry. Okay.
While Kevin's doing that, those people that are listening in and are muted. If you wouldn't mind, please turning off your camera as well. It will help with his speed and us receiving his presentation. Thank you.
Is the image available to everyone now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, Paul. So I'll step back. Here's the typical cross section one. It's not that much different than what you have now. It's sidewalk on both sides of the street. The road, I believe, is a little bit narrower, but that's because the sidewalk is going to a 1.65 versus what's there now, because we have to meet accessibility requirements. The other change you might see is we're not going to go monolithic pour, which is one, basically means the sidewalk's one piece. We're going to put a curb in front of it. That's just a new town standard. And then the second option down below the net, everyone can see, is removal of the sidewalk. I believe right now it's on the east side is the recommendation, and put in a bike lane for this option. Now, again, we're just looking for input at this time, what the community feels about a bike lane. It's more of a public input. From an engineering standpoint, I'm more interested in the pipes underneath the ground. I just need to know what to put back on top of the pipes in terms of sidewalk or bike lane for me to continue in my design. And now, in saying that, the design is still very early. Anticipated construction for this project is not till 2024, and there will be more public engagement once a detailed design has been completed. I'll see if this works or not. Paul, can you let me know if you're seeing the plan for these streets? Okay, yeah. That's good. I got a thumbs up. So this is kind of, I'm going to give you just, we are working on this. However, there will be meetings in the future to talk about individual homes and what's going to happen to your sidewalks, sub pumps. Like I said, it's still too early in the design phase. Right now, I have sidewalks going back on both sides. But if I remove that one sidewalk, that's going to change a lot of things in the design. So at this point, that's where we are in kind of at the crossroads. I should also mention there's a small section of water main that's reached its life capacity. So it will be changed also at the same time as we're doing the storm water. Additionally, there will be questions about detours and access. Generally, this will run like Lawrence Street. It'll be access for residents only. There may be some minor interruptions to your driveway over a period when they change out your water service or sanitary service or your individual homes. But in general, the contractor allows access to your homes during construction. And that, again, is not slated until 2024. And in the meantime, between now and then, we will have more public sessions to gather that information. Right now, we're just preparing this for submission to the MOE because we need that for the design of the storm system in connection to the new storm treatment system that was placed, I believe, 2 years ago now on the end. So, Paul or Vanessa, do you have anything to add at this point before we start taking questions?
Yeah, so the only thing I would add, Kevin, well, just reiterate, I guess, what you said for people that are on the call this evening. Like Kevin had mentioned, that the cross sections that were proposed, you know, we're not married to one or the other. Currently, we have sidewalks on both sides of the street, as Kevin suggested, and the first option at the top of Kevin's screen suggests basically a like for like scenario, albeit everything will be replaced underground and new stuff up top. Like I say, we proposed the option number 2 for a cycling lane, if you will, in that cross section. But again, that's just more just for conversation with people that are on this call to see if there's any type of an appetite for a cycling lane on this particular street or not. Like I said, we're at the kind of the early design stages, but like Kevin mentioned, in order for him to finish his design for sewer, water, and storm, you know, that whatever the consensus is will inform that design, because those pipes under the ground might move from one side to the other depending on how much physical room is within the road allowance that we can actually use. So that being said, we definitely want to hear from everybody here this evening. I guess the one thing that we're not wanting to get into a discussion about, you know, private properties and what's going to happen at my particular property. Like Kevin said, it's far too early to even get into those conversations. That'll be at a later date once we push out communications closer to construction time in 2024, where we'll be talking and consulting with individual property owners to know what some of the limitations or some of the issues are at people's individual properties. For instance, let's say you were aware that you had a lead water service to your property and you had interest in getting that changed out from property line into your dwelling during construction. There possibly could be an opportunity to have the contractor do it at that time if they're available to do so. So those types of things that we can work with the individual property owners, I guess, on some of the kind of the localized issues at your particular property. I guess another thing would be if you had an appetite to maybe say perhaps widen your driveway, this would be the opportune time to press curbs and that kind of thing to accommodate a wider driveway. So those are the types of things we'd be interested in at a later date, to have conversations with private property owners to make sure that those things aren't missed, because now would be the time to do it when construction was at the later stages of construction and before we go perhaps to tender. So with that, anything you have to add to that, Vanessa?
No, I think what we'd like to do now is I'd like to open the floor to any questions from those that are taking part today. You can either type it into the chat, or you can raise your hand and let us know if you have a question. I do see we have our first question here. Does a bike lane mean no parking on that side? Can you provide the current measurement of sidewalks so that we know how much larger they will be?
I can answer the parking. Yeah, there's a bike lane there. There will not be parking on that side. That's an easy one. Vanessa, you might have to help me with the existing width. I believe your standard is
1.5.
1.5, so
Yeah.
approximately 6 inches wider. And sorry, I'm not typing in response because we'd like this video recorded. Just because it's a live streaming event, but that's about 6 inches wider, and no, there wouldn't be parking on that side if there's a bike lane. Okay, that answers that question from, thank you very much, Nancy. Any other questions from the public?
I'm Hugh Gardner. I don't have it on video. I don't have the computer and stuff.
That's perfectly fine.
I'm south of Stratcona, so it really doesn't directly affect me other than access to where I'm living. If you start tearing up Stratcona, you're leaving us with one access route, and that includes for fire and ambulance around Park Avenue. And I was just wondering whether the fire truck's going to have to go up by the hospital and come around Albert Street to get to us, or the ambulance.
So that's going to lead more into a during construction question. Generally, during construction, they'll have a lane open for emergency services. They can allow them to go through. It's written into the contract that they should allow access, however that may be. If you're dead end of the street, if they have to go along the other way, we will alert EMS before the start of construction. That's a normal process that EMS fire truck is always alerted to any construction activities occurring where access might be restricted or diverted in a different direction.
Okay.
That's a normal question we get all the time. So that's a good question. Is there anyone else on the line? Maybe doesn't have access to the chat that'd like to speak of this particular moment.
Ken,
I'm not seeing your
if you
hand.
can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just, from talking to a few people and stuff, the option one is what I'd like the town to stay with, to keep the two sidewalks and the street, and then keep the way it is there now. Just fix the infrastructure, pave it, and put the new sidewalks in, and keep it that way. I think because a lot of your houses on that street, or a lot of them are rentals and stuff, so you have a lot of people out there walking and stuff. And if you take one sidewalk away, that means then a lot of people's going to have to cross the street all the time to get to the other sidewalk. So prefer just to stay with option one.
So Ken, what I would encourage you is to talk to these residents. If they could put in a call or an email to the town, it goes a long ways to get those numbers. Like that'll help Paul and Vanessa go to council and say, hey, we've got this input from the community in regards to this option. I'm also thinking maybe I'll talk with Paul and Vanessa after. Maybe we could have an online vote or some kind, or because I have seen that done before about two options along an online vote where you pick option 1 or 2 and we can count the votes. Really, everyone to talk to your neighbors and ask them to put a phone call or an email. It makes a huge difference in the numbers, because you guys are the ultimate customer of this work for this option. So the more of those voices that Paul and Vanessa hear, the easier it is for them to go and sit council and say, hey, we've heard loud and clear from the community, this is the direction they want.
Okay.
What is the timing of the plan, please? Okay, that's an easy one. So I can answer that one. The plan right now is to submit this to the ministry, I believe in December of this year. That is for basically the ministry checks over my calculations or our team's calculations for the size of the storm pipe to make sure it's adequate to handle the flows. And then we'll start working on the final design which I believe should be submitted to the town for the spring of next year. At that point, the town is going to look at the costing and look at their long-term financing. And I believe it's slated for 2024. But this is going to be an expensive project. So the town will look at the drawings, they'll put them on the shelf, they'll have all the permits in place, and that will be a budgeting issue at what point they decide to go forward with the project. But from our standpoint, from design, we are right now scheduled to have this complete design in May, which means we should probably have another public information session January, February. We'll have a better plan for individual homeowners to come up with concerns about their property. I really want to see sub pumps, people questions about driveways, curbs. That's where we're really going to hopefully get individual homeowner participation. And at that point, I would hope I could have it in person, because it's just easier to go over a set of drawings with someone with a pen and mark up that drawing with your driveway or your sub pump line and answer those questions, showing you a sheet. And it's easier for me also. So that's easy enough.
Adrian, if you can take off
Okay.
your mute and you can ask your question or support.
So my partner and I don't live near where this construction would happen. So I think this impacts us a little less than maybe the residents on the street. But we don't own a car, and we like to frequent downtown. So we wanted to come here to express an interest in the bike lane. But seeing this presentation and understanding that there would be a sidewalk taken away to give room for the bike lane, I'm not super sure about our preference anymore. But I did want to speak up to say there are people here who don't own cars, who would like to access downtown more frequently. And maybe there's another solution for a different street or future plans where bike lanes are maybe more connected throughout the downtown. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Hugh, do you have any? Do you have an option preference since you're not on the computer?
Yeah, I would like to see option 1 as well. I see kids standing on the west side of the street to catch the school bus, and the east side of the street, I see just as many people walking up it, especially as far as between Stratcona and Maine.
Okay, so
Thank you.
That's perfect. So yep. We've got 2 more hands up. Nancy has another question. Okay.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thank you for having this presentation. It's great to be able to provide input at this early stage. And I would just agree with option 1 again, because we're at the corner of William and George, and we've seen many almost hit and runs with people at that stop street and that intersection. And if you have a bike lane there, I believe that is going to create more chaos to an already very high traffic area. We've got trucks coming down William as well, going to the downtown. So if you've got that cross section between William and George, it's just something to consider.
Okay.
I certainly would love to see a bike lane somewhere in town, but I don't really think this is going to be the right venue, just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
No, thank you very much. Brent, sorry. Brent.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Brent, and I'm at number 5 George, which is between Maine and Strathcona. And yeah, not that we're taking a vote right now, but if it were up to me, and it's not, but I would like 2 sidewalks, like keep it the way it is now. I'm all for bicyclists, and but I've seen the use of it on the main street here in town, and I don't see too many bicyclists using it, although it's a good option. Maybe down the line it'll be used more. which would be a great thing. But I think George Street is, it's a fairly wide street. It's, besides other vehicles using it as a shortcut between Abbott and the downtown core, because I think that's where we get a lot of our traffic. But yeah, bottom line is I'd really like it to stay with the 2 sidewalks on either side.
That's exactly what
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, we want to get this input. Vanessa, do you see anyone else? You seem to have a better gauge of the screen. Like,
Mrs. Novacaska, do you have a comment or a preference?
Oh, no, I'm just here. I'm with the Smith Falls Record News, so I'm just taking in the meeting itself.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thomas, do you have a preference? Okay, so Heather, I realize that you indicated that you would be late, and I appreciate you signing in. We're basically taking a look at this option 1 or option 2, and you've had an opportunity to take a look at the drawing. I was wondering if you have a preference of which option you would prefer for George Street.
Well, as you're right, I've only just managed to get in from another meeting, but my 16-year-old is here beside me, and they use their bikes all the time going down to the arena, and he did just quickly indicate, yes, I would like one, but that's without any sort of background or other thoughts. I personally, as an adult, I don't really have a preference because we do have the bike lane on the other side, but the 16-year-old is in for the bike lane.
All right, perfect, thank you. All right, I think we've asked everybody for their comments, and if anybody has any further comments to make or concerns or questions, please do not hesitate to contact me at vbernicky@smithsfalls.ca, and I will be able to either forward your requests through to Kevin, or we could answer them ourselves. Oh, I'm sorry, Jay.
yeah, Jay,
Do you have a comment?
you'll have to turn your mute off, Jay.
Yeah, I should know better. Just no, thanks for people for coming, and I'm a counselor in Smith Falls, and I'm on the traffic advisory board, and I really appreciate hearing this. It's just a listening session for me. I have my own opinion. I know this will come to council. I don't know that it'll come to council this term, and so, but it's good to hear from the residents, and I appreciate everybody coming.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for showing up, Jay. We appreciate your input. Okay, with no other comments from anyone, I think we will conclude our open house for this evening. As I said before, we will have the recording available, and also please, if you have any further comments, please let me know. All right, so thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.